Today, we are diving into the hidden code of student personalities. We're going to use the Myers-Briggs framework to figure out why different students can react so differently to the exact same lesson. And, more importantly, how we, as educators, can build a classroom where every single student feels seen, understood, and motivated to learn. You know this scene, right? Every educator does. You've got one student who just comes alive in a big, energetic debate, while another does their absolute best thinking in total silence. So, what's the deal? It's not about who's smarter or who's more engaged. It's about the fundamental wiring of their personality. So, here's our game plan. We're going to unpack the 4 key dimensions that shape these personalities. We'll start with how students get their energy and process information. Then we'll get into how they make decisions and organize their lives. And finally, the best part, we'll pull it all together into practical strategies you can use in your classroom. All right, first up, let's talk about energy and information. Seriously, these are the fundamental building blocks that determine how a student engages with the world. And of course, with your lessons. So let's start with a big one, extroversion versus introversion. Now, this isn't just about being loud versus shy. It's way deeper than that. It's all about energy. The best way to think about it is like a phone battery. Does social interaction charge that battery up? Or does it drain it, meaning you need some quiet time to plug back in? And you can really see those two energy sources in action right here. On one side, the extrovert is literally being fueled by the group's dynamic energy. But on the other, the introvert is recharging through that quiet, solo reflection. And listen, neither one is better. They're just completely different ways of operating. This right here points to a huge difference in their learning process. Extroverts often follow what you could call a do-think-do pattern. They jump in, they act, they process through that action, and then they refine as they go. Introverts, they prefer think-do-think. They really need to process everything internally before they act, and then they need time to reflect on that action afterward. For the extroverted student, thinking is basically a social activity. They come alive during group work, because for them, talking is thinking. They learn by doing and discussing. They're the ones who leap into an assignment, happy to figure it out as they go, thriving on all that active, dynamic energy. But the introverted student? They need something totally different. They crave that quiet time to just reflect and process their thoughts inside their own head. You'll find these are often the students who share their deepest, most brilliant insights through writing, not speaking. So just give them that space to work on their own and you will see them soar. Okay, on to our second dimension, sensing versus intuition. This is all about how we perceive the world around us. Do we trust the hard, concrete information we get from our 5 senses? Or do we put more stock in the abstract patterns and future possibilities that we can imagine? I absolutely love this metaphor for understanding the difference. The sensor has a worm's eye view. They're grounded right there in the concrete details of the present. But the intuitive, they've got a bird's eye view, soaring high above to see the big picture, the overall patterns, and what could happen next. So what this means is that sensors tend to build their understanding from the ground up, one fact at a time. They're all about the details. Intuitives, though, they often start with that big picture concept and then fill in the details later. One values what's practical, and the other values ingenuity and innovation. A sensing student is probably the one in your class who asks, but when am I actually going to use this? They want to know the real-world application, and they trust what's been proven by experience. They do their best work with clear step-by-step instructions and tasks that produce a real, tangible result. They want to know what is. Your intuitive student, on the other hand, lives for the question, what if? They love brainstorming, exploring brand new ideas, and finding connections between totally different subjects. They're fired up by future possibilities and the chance to invent something new, not just deal with the reality of today. All right, so we've covered how students take in energy and information, but what do they do with it all? Our next 2 dimensions focus on how they make decisions and how they prefer to live and work. This next one is the classic head versus heart debate. We're talking thinking versus feeling. So when you have to make a choice, do you step back to look at it with objective, impersonal logic, or do you step in and consider your personal values and how that decision will impact the people involved? You can really see the difference in where their focus lies. The thinker is analyzing the work with an objective, critical eye, because for them, being correct is what matters most. The feeler, though, connects to the work on a personal level, and they're seeking harmony and affirmation. And just listen to that inner voice, right? The thinker's motivation is all about competence, accuracy, and getting it right. But the feeler, their motivation comes from needing to be appreciated, from feeling a personal connection to what they're doing. Those are two very, very different drivers. So a thinking student, they need to know the why behind an assignment. Give them the logical reason for it. They need objective, direct feedback that helps them get better. Trust me, they aren't looking for you to soften the blow. They just want clarity so they can improve. Feeling students, though, they thrive on that personal connection. They need to know that you value them as a person, not just the work they turn in. They're always drawn to the human angle of any subject, and they do their best work in a classroom that feels harmonious and cooperative. And finally, our last dimension, judging versus perceiving. This is all about our outer world. Do we like things to be decided, planned, and orderly? Or do we prefer to keep our options open, staying flexible, spontaneous, and ready to adapt? Their whole approach to structure can feel like night and day. Judgers feel a sense of relief once a decision is made. They love plans, to-do lists, getting things settled. They are the classic work first, play later people. Perceivers, on the other hand, can feel totally boxed in by a rigid plan. They'd much rather keep their options open and adapt as they go. For them, play often energizes their work. Okay, so we've made it through all 4 dimensions. Now for the most important part, how do we actually use this knowledge to create a classroom that motivates everyone? Let's bring it all together. You can think of this chart as your go-to cheat sheet. For your extroverts, create some buzz with group work. For your introverts, make sure you build in quiet time. Give your sensors those clear, concrete steps, but let your intuitives brainstorm the big, wild ideas. Provide that logical why for thinkers, and offer that personal encouragement for feelers. And of course, give judgers clear deadlines while allowing your perceivers just a little bit of flexibility. It really is all about balance. Look, at the end of the day, understanding personality types is not about putting students into boxes. Not at all. It's about recognizing their unique wiring so we can give them the keys to unlock their own motivation. So the real question is, now that you have these keys, what doors are you going to help your students unlock? Thanks for tuning in.